everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andrea, and in today's video I'd like to check in with all of the books that I've been reading for the past week. So I read 2 short books and 2 short stories. Now, I generally don't read westerns, and I even said at the beginning of the year that I was planning to not join in that many booktube activities. But for some reason, I've just found so many new people and new communities, and I don't know, the reading has just been fun to do in groups now, and I seem to be really leaning even more heavily into reading challenges this year. In a weird corner of the internet right now, there is a challenge called June on the Range, and it is hosted by Michael K. Vaughan and Roy from the channel Roy Reads Anything, and they are people that I follow religiously. And it's basically a challenge where we read westerns and cowboy books, really. And I've never read any in my entire reading history. And I intended at first to read Lonesome Dove for this challenge because I had it. I requested it for Christmas, I think. It was a Christmas present. And I thought, it's a classic sort of, or a modern classic. But it's a bit big, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to commit to that yet. And then somebody in the comments section strongly recommended a book without even knowing about this challenge. He just told me that it's one of his favorite books. And the book is called Shane. And I thought I could do that. I could read Shane because it's a good introduction to cowboy books, and it's actually kind of nice because it's from the point of view of a child as well. So I think this was a very good beginning for westerns for me. So Shane is a middle grade book written by Schaefer. It was serialized in 3 separate parts in Argosy or Argosy. I've heard it pronounced both ways, but it's a publication that was kind of publishing pulps at the same time as Weird Tales, maybe even slightly before that. Westerns were part of it in some ways, and it had great success. In fact, it was even turned into a movie later on. And in this novel, we have this narrative told to us through the perspective or point of view of a child who is about 11 years old. And he lives in Wyoming with his parents, and there's kind of a tension at the time between the cattlemen and the farmers over land. There's always tension in different communities there. Bob, our narrator, really likes working with his dad on the land. He loves his mom, and then they need help. So they hired this guy named Shane who arrives in town, and he's very mysterious. He's kind of this outsider stranger. I was thinking about this narrative kind of juxtaposed to like the governess story because I recently read Katie Lumsden's books, and we always have this point of view from the outsider, and then the outsider sort of tells you what's been happening and why this narrative or this location is strange as an outsider perspective. But with this one, it's kind of the reverse, where you have this mysterious Lone Ranger, this mysterious dark figure who comes in, and he is just like a folkloric legend. He's tough, he's quiet. Whenever he does say something, it's packed with wisdom. He seems to really vibe with the dad, with the kid, with the mom. Like, everyone loves this guy. He's also very good at all of the things he does. So in our little narrator's head, he becomes this sort of hero. And while I'm not going to spoil the ending, Shane kind of leaves in this very dark and ambiguous tone, where a lot could have happened to him after the book ends, and he just remains this like elusive figure. A very powerful moment in this novel is realizing that for this young narrator, this figure is the first time that he shifts his admiration and love from his father to someone else. It's kind of this growth moment where someone else is suddenly more important and interesting, and it's this outside person, and he learns new things, and Shane also treats him like he's much more grown than he is, and he respects him and teaches him things that maybe his parents might not be able to because they still see him as little. And because he has this like mysterious entrance and mysterious exit, he remains a folkloric legend in our narrator's head forever. It's a beautiful novel. It's so short and sweet. I read this in one afternoon. It was like a very bingeable kind of read, but it still kind of stays with you. Like, I'm still thinking about it, even though I technically read this last Sunday. That was my introduction to Westerns. The second book that I read is called Under Pressure by Frank Herbert. Originally, it was published as The Dragon in the Sea, and the cover really got my attention. It's gonna sound very silly, but ever since Ocean Gate happened, I think about Ocean Gate on a daily basis, and there was something kind of adrenaline pumping around that time, because I felt like for the first time, I watched people become class conscious as a collective, and there was this very mysterious aura in the air too that was kind of adrenaline pumping, because we had, as a collective, a countdown on the TV screen of when the oxygen tank was going to run out for a bunch of people. And I watched as people reacted to this in live time. The thought that these people are potentially sitting in a dark, cold kind of tin can thing, contemplating that they might die. And when people found out that the submersible had imploded and it was kind of an instant thing and maybe they didn't have too much time to think about it, people were almost disappointed. And then kind of following that trail, there was also this this wave of people really posting things about submechanophobia, are afraid of mechanical machine-like things submersed underwater. I felt like all of those concepts were captured by this photo in this short sci-fi novel that was written and published in the 50s. The novel is, we follow four men and they're in a submarine and they have a mission, and it's a lot of military language, and the four men also have shortened names but also nicknames, and they do have a hierarchy even though there's four of them. And almost as soon as their journey begins, they find one person who wasn't supposed to be on the submarine is actually trapped in this portion of the submarine, and he's dead. And they only find him because of the incredible stench. So now their mission becomes very tense because they have no communication to land. They're a little bit trapped. Something's happened. There's this potential suicide/murder that they're not really sure. And suddenly these men become suspicious of each other. And they're not only suspicious, but they also are having a kind of micro awareness of how fleeting life is. So they have this very sort of existential dread throughout, where even though they're trying to stay focused and very sort of military type of, stoicism, they have these very fragile moments of like breaking humanity where they freak out about the thought that they might die. And then it turns into something very strange. I would say the first half of the novel was definitely more interesting, and then it just kind of took an interesting direction. Then I returned to the book that I'm buddy reading with Roy called Spores of Doom, which is from the British Tales of the Weird collection, and the theme is sort of mushrooms and fungus. And this short story that I read this week was called The Purple Pileus by H.G. Wells. I think I pronounced that correctly. It's a mycology term, but it's also an ancient history term. It exists in a few different disciplines. So in this short story, we have this very grouchy middle-aged man who's incredibly depressed and miserable, but he's also very angry, and he's especially angry at his wife and her friends. He decides that he's going to eat this purple mushroom to try to off himself. Instead, he starts hallucinating, and then the story turns into something else entirely different that's more bizarre and sci-fi. It wasn't my favorite story by Wells, and it certainly wasn't my favorite story in this collection, but I will carry on. Last thing I read was a short story from a Weird Tales magazine. So I first saw the cover, and this was from May of 1942, and the cover has this ship on it, and I thought, okay, whatever this is, it looks interesting, so I'd like to find out. The story is called Vengeance in Her Shoes by Malcolm Jameson, and the story is fascinating because it kind of really leans into that the ship is alive concept, and there's this ship, and it had been wounded during the war, and it won't respond or work unless this one particular captain is on board. It's almost like they have a connection, and the ship is alive in a way. And it's also got a sort of revenge kick. It's on a mission to go after some people, and it has a mind of its own. So it's very nautical horror, kind of animism out at sea, but it really reminded me too of the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. But I've seen this concept a few times before, and I love it. It's one of my favorite things in literature, when the ships out at sea are alive and have a mind of their own. That's it. Those are all of the things I read this week. Please let me know what you've been reading, or if you've read any of the things I listed today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see you in a future video. Bye.